The New York City budget paradox, $12 billion deficit or $8 billion surplus. Welcome to Red Fence, the podcast where politics gets pulled apart without talking points, no filters, no blind loyalty. I'm your host, ABH, $12 billion deficit or $8 billion surplus. This appears contradictory, does it not? How can a municipal government simultaneously face insolvency and possess substantial cash reserves? Today, we will dissect the debate surrounding New York City's budget calculations. We'll examine the $12 billion deficit, the mechanisms by which it was ostensibly resolved through accounting measures, and the budgetary realities that give rise to such divergent political narratives. New York City was reported to have a deficit of more than $12 billion, but the exact figure depends on which budget forecast you're referring to. News reports said the city faced a roughly $12 billion gap over the next 2 fiscal years, while the later executive budget announcement said the gap had been closed on paper. Mamdani did it through a mix of state aid, internal savings, delayed costs, and new revenue. The city's budget release says the gap was closed with $1.77 billion in savings from agency cuts and efficiencies, $1.2 billion more from program and spending changes, $1.64 billion in a more predictable debt payment schedule, and about $4 billion in state support and actions, including direct aid, pension-related changes, class size flexibility, and a new tax on second homes worth over $5 million. So yes, there was a large deficit projection, and it was closed by combining Albany money, spending restraint, tax changes, and pushing some costs into later years. The assessment was accurate, but we must clarify what deficit signifies in this context. This was not an immediate cash shortage for current obligations. It represented a structural gap. In precise terms, a structural gap indicates that when projecting several years forward, your permanent expenditures, including salaries, pensions, and services, are increasing at a rate significantly exceeding your permanent revenue sources, such as taxes. This constitutes a projection of future financial strain. However, cuts alone proved insufficient. The city also secured substantial state aid to address the ongoing migrant crisis. Additionally, they employed strategic accounting practices. They modified their debt payment schedules. Consider this analogous to refinancing a mortgage to reduce monthly payments. It provides immediate cash flow relief, but the underlying debt obligation remains. Finally, they incorporated new revenue streams, including a tax on second homes. This brings us to the current political confrontation. Eric Adams says he left office with about $8 billion in city reserves and that he didn't create a $12 billion crisis. His claim focuses on cash on hand at the end of his term, not on future multi-year deficits or obligations that weren't fully budgeted but were forecast by independent offices. Mamdani's team says the city faced a $12 billion gap over fiscal year 2026 to 2027 based on analysis by the city and state comptrollers and the Independent Budget Office. They argue that the Adams administration chronically underfunded big-ticket items like shelters, special education, and cash assistance, so the published budgets look more balanced than the actual obligations. Instead of allocating $3 billion in the official budget, they might only designate $1.5 billion. What is the rationale? Because it creates the appearance of a balanced budget today. They intend to determine the source of the remaining funds later in the year, typically by using the reserves we discussed. What is the essential conclusion here? New York City's finances demonstrate the importance of perspective in financial analysis. Your current cash position differs fundamentally from your future obligations. The $8 billion in reserves provides genuine financial cushioning, but the structural pressures of municipal operations, underfunded mandates, and escalating costs ensure that the $12 billion gap will continue to challenge future budgets. This concludes our analysis of the NYC budget situation. If you found this examination valuable, subscribe to the podcast and leave a comment. Thank you for your attention. We will return next time on Red Fence.